charging you for something that you could do yourself.
But we can bring that to mid-sized businesses.
Yes.
I don't think I've met a technologist who doesn't think like that.
Put our money where our mouth is.
You need all the stakeholders in the room.
So, welcome. The rest is tech. We're talking about cost saving, more importantly, adding value to clients by maximising the tools and the systems that they have.
I think that's a very good point. Thank you, Simon. Lots of people talk about cost saving. We deliver cost savings, but we do that by maximising value and refining the processes that are already in place.
Yes.
Sorry?
No. Yeah. I was going to say that cost savings do come, but that's not our main focus. Just by someone from the rest is tech looking at a client's IT budget, they will see obvious things. A typical one is they're still paying for licenses or...
Typical. Comms lines, licenses.
That no longer exist.
Yeah.
But maybe someone that doesn't have the same in-depth of technology experience that we have might miss it or just doesn't have the time to...
I think that's a really good point, Simon. I think another classic I see in service level agreements is an SLA that's built for a different service in a different time.
Yeah.
Often that's an emboldened larger service delivery SLA than is actually required. An example I'd give is when technology was a little bit less robust. People needed 24-hour cover, they needed call outs at weekends, or at least the ability to call a service desk at a weekend. Sometimes that's not as appropriate anymore. So you can shrink the SLA.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
If your office hours are only 8 till 6,
yes,
you don't need support outside those office hours. And you've got to think, if your supplier is supporting outside those hours, they're paying someone those
very
hours.
much so.
Yeah. So we can...
And I actually, speaking as someone who had an outsourcing business, the supplier is often okay with that as well, because it's quite hard to provide cover outside the core hours, 5:12 or 7:24, quite hard.
And also, these days, we're all worried about work-life balance and things like that. So if a supplier doesn't, it's hard finding someone to work outside those hours where they'd rather be at home playing on their PlayStation. And
I think that's a really good point. The playing on their PlayStation that's where we can facilitate robust, grown-up conversations between clients and their suppliers.
Yes.
Because we do act as an intermediary. In some cases, mine particularly, a poacher turned gamekeeper, because I've signed and delivered outsourcing contracts, but also with some empathy for the service provider as well as the client.
Yeah, and the clients they value our opinion because they don't have those IT people in-house. So they know a bit about IT, but they don't know everything or as much as we do about IT, and therefore we can translate, we can have those meaningful conversations and say, well, this is what they mean, or actually they're pulling the wool over your eyes there.
Yes.
They're charging you for something that you could do yourself.
You could do yourself. Or there might be an alternative way of providing that support.
Yeah.
You know, through alternative equipment or alternative lines or whatever. But we look at it with a blank sheet.
Yeah.
If you were procuring that service now, what maximises the value to your business? And if it maximises the value, that has got to be on a best cost basis, so that you move your environment to something that's right for you now.
Yeah, so on the service, but also on systems, when we say that we add value to reduce cost, that is looking at your suppliers, looking at your systems and saying you've got 2 or 3 suppliers or 2 or 3 systems or both, and actually you could just have one because system B and supplier A can support everything you need, and you can get rid of A and C systems and you can get rid of B and C suppliers. So you have one company, easier to manage, but that one system, that one supplier can do everything without any drop in service, but by improving cost. So our clients will have seen that we don't use DocuSign like everyone else. We use another product called Lumin, and that's a conscious, not a cost saving, but to show that we understand there are other products in the industry and we, put our money where our mouth is and use those other systems.
Yeah, and that applies to any system across any client as well.
Yes.
A decision is not set in stone. It's an evolving smorgasbord, really, of services that a business require, and typically it's not reviewed on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So back to what you said, Simon, typical areas are communication lines, licensing, and the other one for me is generally service providers evolve because service providers want more dollars from the same account. So exactly as Simon said, you will have competing products where actually you might be able to buy a bundle of services in one product cheaper than those two discrete ones you're doing at the moment.
Indeed.
And they change fairly quickly.
They do, yeah. And, people probably buy Microsoft because that's what they're used to, that's what they've always used, that was what was on the desktop years ago, and it's just something they're familiar with, but there are other products.
But I'd also say it extends beyond products.
Yes.
For me it does. So...
massively service providers.
Service providers.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
So another example, sorry to cut across, Steve, but another example.
You're not.
Another example.
You're not sorry, because you did.
Yeah, I'm not sorry, but I apologise for doing it. Another example is you can go with some very specific products that a company has developed themselves and will support themselves. But if you fall out with that company, then you're sort of stuck. Whereas if you go with the Microsofts, the Googles, the SAPs, the Salesforces, all the other big names, they often have 50, 60, hundreds of partners that can support you. So if you fall out with one, you don't have to throw the system away. You just get...
You move to another consultancy.
You move to another consultancy.
And I think that would be a really key thing we look at in the initial service review. If it's an absolutely line of business critical system, we're not just looking at the digital side of that system. We're looking at business recovery and your ability as a client to gain support if you're not dealing with that supplier at that point.
Yeah, I would say support is a crucial part of the review, not just the system.
No, that's well. I was going to the third leg to that. I was going to add is processes.
Yes,
because our experience as a group of 30 plus fractional CIOs and CTOs and CISOs is we're used to bolting processes that are real world onto the systems.
Yeah, and
processes take a long time to design, and they tend to come from the bigger companies, to be fair.
Yes.
And they come from the bigger companies because they see the value of process as well as a system. But we can bring that to mid-sized businesses.
Yes, I think another phrase I often use with clients is if you're using SAP, shall we say, and they've got however many millions of customers and their system is configured to do it this way, but you do it this way, you've got to ask yourself, really, is our way of doing it the best way, or
that's a favourite of mine.
Yeah, can we do it the way that the millions of other
companies do it? Because there's manyfold benefits to that.
Yeah, easier to implement, cheaper,
less customisation, so things don't go wrong.
Yeah.
And there's a phrase that we use in terms of working with systems. You use the phrase system advocates.
Yeah. I
use them as system champions. It's the same person. It's people within the business who are going to be champions or advocates for that system. I do have a little warning there, a red flag. They have to be forward-thinking individuals.
Yes.
Because I've been involved in projects where the advocates are trying to rebuild Rome so it just looks like Rome.
Yes, so they have to be, in I'm saying the same but in a different way, they're people that want to see change.
Yes.
They're people that are not happy with the way things are done, and they want things to be done better.
But they also have deep experience of how the company works.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Because and that's, I think, a failing of tech companies, full stop. And we're not a tech company, we're independent. They come along and their new shiny system, they try and impose out on a business. Well, that's never going to be the best solution.
No.
You need all the stakeholders in the room. One of our strengths as commercially focused, value-driven fractional CIOs and CTOs, is our ability to get all the stakeholders together.
Yes.
And make sure all voices are heard, I think.
Yeah, and we're talking about cost saving, aren't we? So while you were talking, I was thinking we're talking about suppliers and being able to swap suppliers if you fall out with them. Another cost saving by having maybe a well-known system, and by all means we don't always advocate a well-known, but we're just explaining some of the differences. A well-known system, so if you have a Windows-based system, there are thousands of people out there that are used to using that. So when you're recruiting for your own team, whether it's to support it or just people to use it from the procurement team using the Microsoft system, you'll have a greater
that's a really good point.
breadth of people to choose from, and therefore you don't have to pay a premium salary just to get that unicorn.
Very good point. But that's also a good point about process.
Yeah.
And it's not always the case, but we would advocate that those skill sets go into job descriptions and recruitment processes. And that's something an in-house tech team might not always think of.
Indeed, yeah. So just to follow that theme, I totally agree. The process, so if you're recruiting someone in and you use the standard SAP process and they're used to using SAP, it's going to be easier for that person to understand your business because I've always done it that way.
And their learning curve will be steeper, they get up and running quicker, which is another cost saving, but we call it's value driven.
Yes.
It's adding value to the business.
Yeah. Well, they're coming on board quicker. And contributing to the business far sooner.
So that's again just an example of where it's not just about the tech. We're commercially focused. In fact, that's why we fly under the flag of the rest is tech. It's almost, when you're talking to us, we can do the tech. You only have to look at our LinkedIn profiles. Yep. You only have to look at the deep expertise across our community. But what else do you want?
Indeed. And in fact, we look at the business first, don't we? So it's the people, products and processes that are enhanced with the strategic application of technology, not technology first.
Yes.
Another phrase I use is that technology is the catalyst for change. So it's not the end in itself. We sort out people. We get the people on board. People want to change, get them in the right mindset. We give product ideas, how you can run things quicker, add extra services, add value to what you already do that you maybe not have thought about because we have experience across other industries. And we sort out the processes to make sure that they're best of breed for you, probably industry best practice. And then all that is cemented, or the catalyst to drive that change is the implementation of the right technology.
Yes, or the right service or the right service. Yes. There's a phrase I use is we speak business through technology.
Yeah.
Technology is our home base. An example would be for me, in the couple of the projects I've run over the years, I've encouraged the internal IT team to be amongst their users for tech that's not to do with the business. The reason I'll explain that.
Yeah, please.
Technologists, and I'm one, I think, we love explaining things, we love fixing things, we love making things better.
Yes.
That's a thread that runs through all technologists. I don't think I've met a technologist who doesn't think like that, whether they're with us or they're run inside a company. So one of the programs I ran, I encouraged the internal team to do what I call brown bag lunches, where people could have their home tech.
Yes.
So they bring them for lunch, feed everyone, get people talking to each other. It achieves two things. It gets the users much closer to their support team.
Yep.
And secondly, it ensures that the support team understands their users.
Could I add a third to that?
You may.
Thank you. So many people are now working from home occasionally, maybe not with the business technology that they've been provided, that if we can increase the level of the standard of the home tech, it's going to make the business more efficient, more secure.
Yes.
So that there is
I think that's a really good point, actually, in terms of maximising value. since COVID, but ever since then, hybrid working has been the norm. But I felt there was a rush to that, naturally so. But sometimes it's good to take a step back and see what standards are out there.
Yes.
And then you can choose the right systems, as you say, that enhance the business, and everyone's working at the same standard.
Yeah.
And that can only be good.
But on cost saving, a lot of businesses, just the flip side of that, a lot of businesses sometimes drag behind the implementation of technology at home. People might have, and I think that's a real challenge that businesses need to address. They need to keep up to date with, and by having the right processes, I'm not saying invest loads of money in tech, but by having the right processes and procedures in place, you can embrace that home technology for the benefit of the business.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would say invest some.
Yes.
Because it's always strange to me as a technologist, and I don't know if Simon would agree, that's the key portal, the key end user device we all use, and people expect their people to be productive, rightly so. Well, you have to support them as well to be productive.
Yeah, so I suppose to put meat on that bone that I'm talking about, so maybe if people want to use their own devices, it's called BYD, isn't it? Bring your own device.
BYOD, bring your own device.
Yeah, bring your own device. But if you have something like MDM, mobile device management, just explain the TLAs that we're using.
We went geeky there.
But invest in something, but if you have the right systems and processes, that's a bit of software that lets people use their own device.
Which I often prefer to.
Indeed, they do. And maybe, I've done this in businesses where it costs you £1,000 to buy a laptop. Well, why don't you give employees, and you can do this tax efficiently, give employees £500 every 3 years. But they have to use MDM.
I didn't know where you were going to go with that. 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
It's the concept of tax collection in reverse. People say you're better at spending your own money.
Yes.
So give people an allowance.
Yeah.
As long as the machine matches the specification and functionality we've agreed.
Yeah.
Put an overarching MDM system in where the machine can be managed wherever it is. I haven't been in a client where that hasn't increased satisfaction and productivity.
Yeah. But people love, as you said, use their own machine.
Yes.
I think, great, I'm getting money from the company.
Yeah. They don't want 2 laptops hanging around at home. They don't want 2 iPads. So,
but you set the standards.
Yes.
So there's work that we get involved in to help define the standards, to help define the systems and processes that need to be in place. But it's a great cost saving for the business and the added benefit of employee satisfaction.
We get there in the end because I think that we could probably summarise maximising value through that one action.
Yes.
You know, that is give people what they want. It's cheaper for the business. It's better for the business. It increases morale, which is how you're going to measure that. But it increases morale, and yet the business will probably save money over a period of time.
Yeah. Yes. So IT just have to not try and control everything, but have enough control to satisfy the business, because they need to protect the business.
They need to protect the business, but as things and data and systems are more cloud-based, that's a little bit easier than it was anyway.
Oh, it's a lot easier.
Because if you're looking at the cloud, it doesn't really matter which device you're doing that from.
And that's where, subject of another video is, but zero trust networks.
Zero trust networks, yes.
Something that we'll talk on a different video.
Well, it looks like we're going to be doing another video very soon. I think we're there with this one.
I think so. If you've liked what you've seen, heard, please subscribe to hear more. We welcome your comments, and we thank you, our hosts here at Essendon Country Club, for today.
Thank you for watching.
Thanks.
Oh, it was a good one. Yeah. That last thing.